Hi everybody, Levi Clay here, and I'm back again to do another top 5 list. The last list I did, in case you missed it, was on the top 5 progressive rock bands that you've probably not heard but definitely should. So I thought I'd continue down that vein and look into instrumental guitar players, because when I was looking at the progressive thing, there were certainly a lot of instrumental things that I wanted to talk about, but didn't really fit with the setting. So what I'm going to bring you today is the top 5 instrumental guitarists and albums that you probably haven't checked out but you absolutely should. So these are all going to be rock based players. Obviously I could go down the blues route or the jazz fusion route, potentially even country route, anything like that. But this is definitely going to be geared to you rock fans and you metal fans. And I'm going to start out with number 5, which is going to be a guitar player that some of you probably heard of. I think he's an underrated master of the instrument, and that would be Mr. Chris Poland. So Chris Poland of Megadeth fame, played with Megadeth for quite a while. Also played with the band Ohm, who have some fantastic albums. I was going to recommend some Ohm recordings, but actually that's a little bit more fusion perhaps in nature. So what I'm going to recommend is Return to Metalopolis. So this album is, I mean, it's dated in its sound. The production very much sounds like an old 80s thrash album. But the compositions are excellent and the playing is wonderful. And it's very much for fans of, I mean, I'd say fans of Metallica. It even has that kind of Metallica thrash vibe to it. But in terms of guitar players, to me, Chris Poland is kind of like the metal equivalent of Sean Lane. And I know that's some heavy praise to throw at someone, but Chris Poland definitely has that sort of technical ability on the instrument. It really is quite astonishing with the kind of speed with which he was able to, or is still able to play at, and create some long, flowing, exciting lines. Well worth checking out, and as I say, an underrated monster of the instrument. He has a wonderful voice, lots of very cool bending ideas. He is an instantly recognizable player, so I would recommend you check out Return to Metalopolis. And if you want a track recommendation, why not start with The Fall of Babylon? So that's my number 5 spot. Like I say, probably quite a well-known player compared to some of the others because he played with Megadeth. But when we move on to our number 4 spot, we have a name again that definitely did the rounds in the 90s but didn't really achieve the love and attention that he deserved. And that player is Mr. Michael Lee Firkins. So again, I've talked about Firkins quite a few times on this channel, but Michael Lee Firkins has a fabulous approach to playing the guitar. He's very much influenced by slide guitar players. He's a blues influenced player, but very definitely playing rock and metal, especially on his first record, which was self-titled, Michael Lee Firkins. When you check out that record, what you're going to find is a player that uses the whammy bar on his old Yamaha Pacificas to imitate slide guitar, and the result of that is a very unique voice on the instrument. Again, you'll notice this with each one of these players. They all have their own thing going on, which it's really what I look for when I'm looking for great instrumental guitar players. But Michael Lee Firkins, obviously also a great writer, so not only does he have an excellent voice with which he can punctuate his songs, he can express himself, but the actual songs themselves are excellent. So like I say, his first record, the Michael Lee Firkins self-titled Shrapnel record, is a wonderful recording. I've transcribed the entire thing, it's that damn good. I would recommend you all go and check out 24 Grand Avenue. Not only is it a very kind of expressive track with a very strong melody, just the riff and the chord progression in the intro it grabs me every single time I hear it. So like I say, Michael Lee Firkins, he's our number 4 spot. And in fairness, he's probably another one that many of you have heard of, but maybe you've not listened to Michael in a while. So go and check out some of Michael's stuff. Now we'll move on to the number 3 spot. We're definitely moving into newer players now, players that maybe you haven't heard of, maybe you haven't checked out. In this case, we're going to talk about Richie Allen. So Richie Allen is the composer and lead guy for the band The Heavy Metal Ninjas, band out of New Zealand. Richie is a monster of a player. I cannot stress that enough. He has a really exciting blend. I'm trying to look for the right words. It's kind of Steve Vai meets progressive metal type stuff. There's a lot of Jason Becker influences in his playing as well. To me, it's very exciting to listen to him because you can hear those influences coming through strong, but not in a way that you've heard them done before. You in the 90s, you heard a lot of players that sounded like Steve Vai and a lot of players that sounded like Joe Satriani, and all they were doing was playing songs that sounded like they should have been on Satriani records or Vai records. Richie Allen doesn't need to do that. He can take those influences and do something incredibly fresh and exciting. So the Heavy Metal Ninjas album, Interstellar Abduction, is a must here. It really is genuinely a very exciting album. I wanted to talk about some modern progressive metal bands, and I was considering talking about Intervals and considered talking about Chon potentially, but it really has to come back to the Heavy Metal Ninjas, because while all of these other bands I kind of enjoy, with the Heavy Metal Ninjas, there's definitely that throwback to the 80s and 90s guitar heroes, the Jason Beckers and the Steve Vais of the world. So I am sure that if you like Steve Vai, you are going to love the Heavy Metal Ninjas Interstellar Abduction. If you need a track to go and check out Propulsion Parts 1 and 2. Absolutely wonderful. Part 1 is a full-on Jason Becker expressive tour de force of Richie's shred ability, and then when Part 2 drops, suddenly the 8-string guitar rhythms kick in with that genty, powerful low end, searing melody. Excellent. Just has to be heard to be believed. So check out Richie Allen's playing. He's excellent. The number 2 spot is going to go to someone that actually on the internet scene you're probably very familiar with his playing. Good friend of mine as well, Mr. Martin Miller. So Martin has a couple of records, one solo record. He's got a fusion band record that he played on as well. But his solo album, The Other End, is actually one that I think people forget about because it's a great record. I put it on in the car the other day, and it covers lots of feels. There's definitely some jazzier moments on there, but the actual rockier moments on the album are world class. There's no denying that Martin is a world class rock and metal guitar player. And the problem of being the guitar player that Martin is probably that issue of being so good at so many different things that when you put out an album, it feels right to put a bit of everything on there. I think the world would love and enjoy an instrumental rock or instrumental metal album from Martin, because his playing really is quite exceptional. Sure, he's definitely one for fans of guys like John Petrucci, but the thing I really enjoy about Martin is the other influences that you can hear in there that aren't rock or metal. For example, Pat Metheny. You hear a lot of Pat Metheny in Martin's phrasing, but played in a way that makes you wonder, is this what Pat Metheny would do if he was playing metal? So The Other End is well worth checking out. I'd recommend you check out the track Nervous Opus, which is the opener. It's kind of a electronic dance backing to it with a killer shred guitar thing over the top. Very cool melody. When that chorus drops, it's wonderful. I really do enjoy that track, and it's a challenge if you want to learn to play some of it. But I'd also recommend Forever Eternal. Again, a strong melody on the track. It's the 7-string track on the album. It's kind of the throwback metal track. You hear that and you go, okay, I see where this guy has come from. Lots of other great tracks on the album, of course, but yeah, those two I would highly recommend you check out. And monster guitar playing, just terrifying. And that leads us to the number 1 spot. The number 1, who is Levi Clay going to throw into his number 1 spot of the instrumental guitar player or album that you haven't heard but you absolutely must? This one's actually a scarily big influence on me. So I grew up listening to a lot of Joe Satriani. Joe Satriani was kind of the first instrumental guitar player that I began to enjoy. So when I discovered this player, I could hear a lot of Joe's influence on him, but in a completely new, fresh and exciting way. That guitar player, another Megadeth guitar player as it would happen, is Kiko Loureiro. So Kiko has several instrumental albums, but to me his first instrumental album, No Gravity, is still by and large one of my favourite instrumental guitar albums of all time, and it's one of those unsung ones of the guitar scene. Well worth checking out. Kiko obviously of Brazilian heritage, there are a lot of moments on the album where he brings in some of his more traditional Brazilian influences. And to a younger Levi, that was extremely exciting to hear someone that was such a convincing metal guitar player bring in sounds that were a little bit more alien to me. And still, I enjoy those moments on the album, greatly. But you can't deny what a technical rock and shred monster Kiko is. And yeah, over the years I've kind of thought to myself, this album's been a very big influence on me. The way he bends, the way he phrases, the way he stretches out melodies and expands on his ideas, the length of his melodies. I know that sounds ridiculous, the length of someone's melodies, but this idea of writing in very strict forms where you have melodies of a set length, so everything feels very structured. Of course, that's common in any good melody writing thing, but yeah, it was very apparent to me when listening to Kiko's playing. Absolutely phenomenal record, genuinely, like I say, one of my favourite instrumental records of all time, No Gravity. I would highly recommend that you go and check out the track Escaping. That's, I think, track 3 on the record. It has an unbelievable melody on it. I've said unbelievable way too many times in this video, I'm sure, but it really is a very strong vocal, expressive melody. It moves into a lovely middle section with a kind of Latin tinge to it, and then builds back into the main melody, and it's a punch in the stomach every single time I hear it. Again, I've got it in the car at the moment and I just thoroughly enjoy it. So Kiko Loureiro's No Gravity, absolutely tremendous record. I saw Kiko in an off-chance clinic at the Guitar Institute just before I moved to London. I saw that he was there and asked if I could go down, and the Guitar Institute said, yeah, sure, no problem. You're thinking of studying with us, why not? And I went down and was absolutely blown away by how good he was. So it's good to see him going off and doing such high-profile work with Megadeth. Anyway, I'm getting sidetracked. Kiko Loureiro, you are one of the greats, sir. Keep it up. So, there we go. That is my list, my top 5. What do you think? Have you heard of some of those names? Are some of them newer names to you? Have you found your next favourite guitar player? Do you have some recommendations of rock and metal guitar players that have instrumental records that you think people should check out because they might not have heard them? Make a case for them in the comments below. I'm always, keen to check out more music. And lastly, you guys probably get tired of this, but these guys over here, these are my Patreon supporters. They all support me over on patreon.com. These are $10 or more guys. Helps to keep these videos coming. So massive thanks to these people. Couldn't do what I do without them. It means that I can spend money on getting better quality equipment. The audio should be a little bit better. I've just picked up the RX6 plugin suite because I want to use some de-reverb just to take some of the ambience out of this room. And yeah, these guys are in part to thank for that. So thanks very much, guys. If you would like to support this channel, you can do so over on patreon.com for as little as $1. You can check us out by clicking this button up here. Lots of cool stuff in return for supporting us over there. You get to join my private patron-only Facebook group. Lots of cool stuff going on in there. But check it out. Subscribe by clicking this button down here, and you'll see 2 more of my videos here and here. As always, I'm sure you'll find something you enjoy. Thanks so much for the support, guys. I'll see you in the comments box and chat to you soon. Laters.